Hello, my name is Susan DeRoy, and I'm from Citizens Count. I'd like to introduce you to two of my comrades here. This is Anna Brown and Jackie Benson, and we're here to tell you about Citizens Count and what we do in the state of New Hampshire. Citizens Count is located in Hampton, New Hampshire. It's about 10 years old now, and our role, our mission, is to make engagement easier for our citizens of New Hampshire. Jackie, can you talk a little bit about Citizens Count and how long you've been with the organization?
Sure, yeah. So I've been with Citizens Count for 4 years now, and our mission is to try and get folks engaged in policymaking and government again. And we do that with a whole variety of initiatives that we run and a ton of data that we wrangle. So I'm the content editor. My job is to manage, we've got 100 different issues that we cover on the website, and I keep all of those up to date. I also run a campaign called Citizen Voices that'll be kicking off in a few months, and that is a project where we put questions about bills and public policy issues out to citizens like yourselves. We ask you to weigh in, and then we actually take your views and deliver them to elected officials who are in charge of making those policy decisions.
Anna, can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Citizens Count?
Of course. So my official title is Director of Research and Analysis. And so I'm responsible for tracking and profiling all of the candidates in New Hampshire elections, as well as current elected officials, and I also summarize and track all of the legislation that goes through the New Hampshire legislature. And that's quite the task, because in New Hampshire we actually have the third largest legislature in the English-speaking world. So we're behind the U.S. Congress and the Indian, is it Parliament or Congress in India?
I'm pretty sure it's the Parliament.
I'm pretty sure it's a Parliament in India. So the New Hampshire House of Representatives comes right behind. There's 400 state reps and 24 state senators. So that means that there's about 800 candidates that are running for office, just state-level office in New Hampshire this year. And so my job is to research them, but also track them down and survey all of them for this upcoming election.
Can you talk a little bit about the survey process?
Absolutely. So unlike the other nonprofits that may have a specific mission, a specific issue that they're advocating for, Citizens Count just focuses on what are the most important issues to all citizens in New Hampshire right now. We ask our community on Facebook, our other members through email, and our newsletter, and say, what issues do you want to know about? So some of the issues on our survey include gun laws, Medicaid expansion, affordable housing initiatives, if there should be a ban on abortion after 20 weeks, should New Hampshire stay involved in the renewable portfolio standard we have going on? And so I survey all of the candidates and really try to give everyone the same opportunity and track them down and get this information straight from the source, because I will look at their websites or voting records and try to extrapolate, okay, where do they stand on the issue? But we always want them to have the opportunity to say themselves. So they're getting snail mail from us, email, phone calls. I've been posting on Facebook pages. So we're happy to put up anything a candidate gives us, because we just want to make it easier for the citizen and the candidate to come together at the same place.
So when do you start your process?
So the survey drafting process started back in this past spring, and we first sent out surveys as soon as all of the candidate filing closed, which was at the end of June.
And we already are seeing that some of these issues are definitely going to be coming up in the legislature next year.
Absolutely.
We've been stalking the LSRs. And for
Yes.
those of you who aren't familiar with LSR, that's basically a request that a representative or senator puts in to have a bill drafted.
Stands for
topic.
Legislative Service Request.
So you're probably wondering, how is it that we have bill requests when we haven't had an election yet? But representatives and senators who are already incumbents are allowed to submit their bills early, and then if they don't win the election, those bills just get yanked. But it gives us a little bit of a sneak preview as to some of the topics that might be coming up. And there's a lot of stuff that's covered on our survey and in the issue positions that we put on the website for these candidates that we know are going to be debated next year.
Yeah.
Anna, you're the one that actually does the work in looking up the bills. Is that correct on Gen Court?
That is correct. Yes.
That's quite a
yes.
thing to be doing.
Yes, because imagine there's 400 state reps, 24 senators. Even if only, every representative only sponsors one bill, that's hundreds of bills. It can be very hard for legislators, let alone citizens, to be tracking and following these bills and reading all of them. So I go through and I read every single one, and I put a summary on our website that is, okay, what does this really mean? Because when you look at a bill, it might say, referring to concealed carry licenses, and you don't know, is it repealing the concealed carry license? Is it adding a concealed carry license? So I go through and I'll try to translate that so that the average person coming to our website can say, okay, what is this about? How does this affect me? And then track it through the process, hearings, when it's getting votes, if it's going to go to the governor for a signature. And Jackie, maybe we can talk a little bit about, so there's about 180 bills now that we already know have been requested for next year. So what are some of the hot topics?
Well, for example, banning abortion after 20 weeks. We have a bill that's come up. It's not, that doesn't say in the title whether that's what it's going to be about, but if you look at the issue positions of the rep that sponsored it, she's pretty clearly in favor of banning abortion after 20 weeks. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be on the table. We know marijuana legalization is going to come up again.
And that comes up every year.
It comes up every year, but we've had a study committee working on this issue all summer, and they're due to issue a report shortly, and they've already started. Usually a study committee in an election year means this is not.
It's just a polite way of killing a bill,
Yes.
usually.
But this time is different. This is something they really are serious about looking at this. And the report should be out probably at the beginning of November. And it will give more details on the policies that they are going to recommend. They're making it clear that they're not going to come out in favor of or against marijuana legalization, but they are going to talk about, if we legalize it, here's what we should do.
Right. And I definitely think that marijuana legalization, it's been building momentum year over year over year. And I think there is a chance it will pass this year because you're seeing pressure from the neighboring states that have legalized marijuana, such as Massachusetts and Maine. So
yeah, there's also
Vermont.
some gun
And
laws,
Vermont.
And Vermont.
some gun laws stuff that's been coming up. We've got a piece of legislation that looks like it could be about banning guns in schools. The issue of guns in schools legally is so complicated in
Yes.
New Hampshire. We've had to do a lot of work to try to
Yes.
dig into
I
exactly
remember you and I
where the
detected
law
that
is.
one day because
Yes.
there's federal laws and there's the state law, and
Yep.
then technically local school districts and towns can't say anything about
Yeah.
gun use anywhere on public
Yeah,
property. Is that correct?
It's correct. Yeah, this ruling, any kind of ruling on guns is reserved for the state. So unless the federal government overrules, towns and schools and smaller government bodies like that don't have any say. So this could be a really interesting debate that we see next year. And for those of you who are getting ready to head to the polls on November 6th,
Yes.
November 6th.
November 6th. Get out and vote.
get out and vote. But also, if you're trying to figure out, who on my ticket is going to be aligned with my position on these issues, that's where the survey we're talking about comes in
Right.
handy. And all of this information is on our website at citizenscount.org. So if you pop on there, go to the election page, you'll see a list of all your candidates, and you can check out, hey, would this person be in favor of banning abortion after 20 weeks or against it? Are they in favor of marijuana legalization or against it? Because you can't necessarily rely on party affiliation in New
It's
Hampshire
true.
for these positions.
correct.
We have a fierce spirit of independence in this state.
Absolutely.
And you do see that filter through into the positions that our candidates take on these issues.
Absolutely. I can't speak to other states as much because I've been in New Hampshire pretty much my whole life, and this is where I've invested all of my time and energy. But it definitely seems that whatever party a candidate puts on the ballot, it's, it might be the most of their positions are going to line up with the party platform, but they're very independent thinkers,
Yeah.
like you said, just like most voters. And of course, there is also now the Libertarian Party, which got
Yes.
full party status this past year.
Right.
And so they're going to have their own slot on the ballot as well.
And their own position on all of these issues.
Absolutely.
Also,
So let's
yes.
talk a little bit about how we keep this nonpartisan and unbiased, and that's a
Yes.
very difficult thing to do. Can you talk about our team?
Yeah, we have people working for Citizens Count who come from all across the political spectrum. So that's one way that we have a check and balance to make sure that we're staying neutral. We have a board that represents different political views and people from different parts of the state to make sure we don't get too Seacoast focused or too Concord focused. But it's a constant process, and a lot of what we do has to go through a lot of reviewing for getting people with different perspectives and views on the issues to come in and make sure that we're not taking a slant. So we really do fiercely protect this idea that we're nonpartisan. You'll never see us advocating for or against any of these issues.
No
Absolutely
positions.
not.
Yeah,
No positions.
our agenda is 100% just trying to make it easier for other people to do the advocating.
For our audience.
Yeah, we're 100% in favor of people feeling passionate about an issue and wanting to take action on it. Our goal is to be the tool that they use in order to make it easier for them to take those actions. The things we're talking about, like summarizing all these bills, and we organize them on our website into those 100 issues that I was talking about. So you can go to a single page, see all the related legislation and what its status is. That makes it a lot easier for you to know what bills you got to pay attention to and when you might want to drop a line to a representative or even make a drive up to Concord for a public hearing or weigh in on one of these Citizen Voices debates that we've been talking about. And when it comes to going to the ballot box, we want you to have the ability to cast an informed vote. And you don't have to necessarily just rely on your party. You can choose to do that, but we're providing another source of information beyond just trusting, the color on your ticket in order to know who to vote for.
So this is pretty complicated stuff.
Oh, it's very complicated, but I feel that it's complicated because New Hampshire really gives a lot of access for anybody to come to the table and contribute. So that means a lot of public hearings, a lot of bills, a lot of representatives. It means there's a lot of voices that can all be heard. So we're trying to make that easier, though. That's our mission. It's to make citizen engagement easier. And as you were saying with the Citizen Voices, if you can't come to a hearing in the middle of the day, we'll collect your comments and deliver them for you. If you don't have time to call up your candidates and research them, we'll provide their issue positions for you.
Now, would you do that for just about anybody?
Yeah, anybody.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So if the animal kingdom wants us to help them out and put a position up there, we would do that.
Yes.
Yes.
They might have trouble communicating that.
Yeah, they might. Yeah. Talk a little bit about your background in terms of how you
Sure.
got here, because I think that's really important.
Yes. So I started with Citizens Count in 2011, and that was right after I'd got a master's degree in justice studies, and my background is in political science and the law. So for me, I was very interested in law, politics, how this relates, how policy is made, because realistically, there's a lot of noise right now on the federal level. There's always a lot of noise about it, a lot of anger, but really what happens to you day to day in New Hampshire, your voting rights, are your potholes filled, what's on your electricity bill, this all happens at the state level. So for me, that's what I was really interested in. So Citizens Count, which was formerly known as the Live Free or Die Alliance, came to a course I was taking at the University of New Hampshire called State Policy. And so that's how I was first introduced to the organization. And after I graduated, I contacted them and said, I am passionate about this mission. I would love to help you inform the public about the Granite State government. And so that's how I started. And I started wearing we're a small nonprofit, so we all wear a lot of different hats. So over time, as Jackie has joined us and you have joined us and other people, I've been able to focus more on just the policy and candidate research, because that sort of legal issues, that's really my background.
Yeah, we have a lot of people out there that follow us.
We do, yeah. The community of people that have interacted with our organization or made use of our resources or become members, it's well over 200,000 people.
So we're making an impact. And now we're trying to make an impact in all of our local towns, and we're hoping that you all will come and take a look at our website at www.citizenscount.org. Take a look at the work that these ladies are doing and the rest of the team. We're really providing unbiased, nonpartisan, no position information to help you better educate yourself on your representatives, on your senators, your governor, and then when 2020 comes, on our presidents.
Yeah, and we can talk briefly about the 2020 presidential
Let's.
primary too, because that is a very hotly contested race on the Democratic side. There's no clear front runner at this point. You have old candidates like Bernie Sanders, former Vice President Joe Biden, who are maybe going to hop in again. You also have Senator Elizabeth Warren, some other prominent senators, Senator Jeff Flake even, that name has been thrown out there.
Particularly lately.
Particularly
Yes, lately.
lately, in lights of his comments. He was at the NHIOP recently talking about issues. And then there are also some other wild card candidates. When Donald Trump came in the first time, he was very much he was seen as an outsider and from someone from the entertainment industry. And there are some names like that that are being added to the mix.
Yep.
Mark Cuban has talked about challenging Trump on the Republican side. And then on the Democratic side, you have Oprah, who, although she denies it fiercely, her name keeps on coming up. And then Avenatti, who is the lawyer for former adult film star who was suing Donald Trump. So these people are going to be coming to New Hampshire. You're going to have a chance to meet the future president of the United States, whoever that is. And we're going to be covering those events, the issue positions of these candidates, because that's going to be huge. It's going to start right away in January, I'm sure. New Hampshire's first in the nation.
Wonderful. So we're gearing up for this.
Absolutely.
2020 is the goal, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's really right around the corner, because New Hampshire, in order to maintain that first primary status, it keeps on getting early and earlier. So it's probably going to be in January or February 2020, which is just a little over a year away.
And I guess
let's not forget. Let's not let the 2020
2020,
hype
yeah.
get in the way of 2018.
That's
True.
right. That's
We,
really
True.
we
important.
tend to undervalue these midterm elections, and they can have a tremendous impact.
A massive
There's a lot at
impact.
stake right now. I mean, privately, we have talked and speculated a little bit about what actually could happen here in November.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
There's could we have a shift in the makeup of the House, for
Yes.
example? You know, is that something that's potentially on the table here?
And you know, a lot of people feel like their vote doesn't count. And Anna, you can really speak to that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So tell everyone your vote actually counts.
And it's easy, it's easy for that to sound just sort of like a platitude when we're talking about national elections. In New Hampshire, every election year, there are multiple recounts for state representatives and state senators. And when I say recounts, I mean that we're talking under 10 votes difference. We're talking multiple race winners switching. And there's actually a procedure, and I was talking to the head of the ballot commission the other day, and he says, oh yeah, this happens every few years. They have a regular procedure in place if there's a tie, because that is how frequently it happens in New Hampshire. And what they will end up doing is rolling dice.
Yes.
And that will determine who wins the
Really?
the election.
Okay,
Yes.
I learned something new today about this.
Yes, this is New Hampshire. It's all it's right there on the ground. It's happening. It's full of action because there's so much going on all the time. So if you think your vote doesn't count, then just contact us and I'll send you some of those recount results and you'll see, wow, maybe if me and like my wife had showed up to the polls that day, you could have made a difference.
Someone
Well,
else might have won.
And I
Someone
think a
else
lot
might
of
win.
husbands and wives feel like they cancel one another out, but don't think that way because
No.
every vote does count. And we probably really should throw those up on our website. Just a few of
Yes.
them, just to show people that it really does matter.
Yes, absolutely. And also, as Jackie was saying, there's a chance that there will be a change of power in the New Hampshire House, maybe in the New Hampshire Senate, even maybe in the governor's office. It is very true that Sununu has very high approval
does,
ratings,
yeah.
but on the other hand, there was incredibly high Democratic turnout at the primary, which can indicate that there's going to be much more Democratic voters than Republican voters in the general election. So I would say all three offices, there could be a change of power. And if that power changes, it could have a big impact on the voting laws, which, recently they passed the law HB 1264, which was changing the laws around you have to register your car and follow other residency laws if you're voting. That could maybe get repealed.
Yep.
And what would the governor do with that? There's the family and medical leave bill, which we know is going to come up again no matter
Absolutely.
what. But what is
Absolutely.
it going to look like? Is the payroll tax going to be optional? Is it going to be mandatory? How would that program be structured if it even passes? So it's each individual representative of these state races, I would argue in this election, it will have such a huge impact on your life. Literally the paycheck you take home, what you're seeing on the roads as you're driving, it's going to make a difference.
And we know that these are going to be some very tight races.
Very tight. There are very tight
I'm
races.
looking at like CD1 and with Eddie
Yes.
Edwards and Chris Pappas, and I think the indication is that it's anyone's game there right now. And even Annie Custer's facing, I think, a legit threat with Steve Negron.
Well, the interesting thing that as I've been reading the past few days is even though there was much higher Democratic turnout in the primary in New Hampshire, they've also done some polling recently nationally, so I haven't seen what this is specifically in New Hampshire, but nationally, the New Hampshire's turnout followed a national trend. It seems that Democrats were turning out more during the primary.
Yeah, right.
But actually, since these U.S. Supreme Court nomination hearings have been going on, they've been polling people saying, are you going to go vote? Are you going to go vote? And now there's been a surge in Republicans saying, yes, I'm going to go vote because this seems to has really sort of motivated them, whereas they were just kind of sitting back before. So I think even that dynamic could shift and we could see maybe even more Republicans coming out in November.
Now, how was this election year or mid-election compared to the last one? In
Compared to
terms of-
2016?
Yes, in terms of people coming out.
Sure. Well, as Jackie said earlier, there's always a struggle during midterms. If there's not a president running for office, people tend to just sit back because, I don't know, it's less entertaining, they don't know the candidates as well, whatever reason. But I think that this time it's a little different because in some ways I think people are viewing this as almost a referendum on the president. It was certainly true in Congressional District 1. During the primary, the Democrats were talking a lot about whether or not they would vote to impeach him. So I think that that's still on people's minds, but I would also say regardless of why you're thinking about getting to the polls, honestly, forget about Trump. It really is happening at the state level, and there are compelling reasons we've talked about to get out and vote, because your vote will count and it's going to make a big difference in what happens next year.
So we're not all about voting. We're all about getting engaged
Absolutely.
and knowing and being educated
Yes.
for our representatives. How do we do that? What tool do we have that people can take to the voting booth with them?
Yes,
this
we
year?
haven't talked about
We
our
haven't talked
app
about
yet.
that.
We have the New Hampshire Voter Guide app, Citizens Count New Hampshire Voter Guide. You can find a link on our website homepage.
Yes.
You can also go to the Android or Apple Store, Android Play, Google Play Store. Can you tell that
It's
I'm
the
wonderful
Google
with
Play.
smartphones? Jackie, take it away.
Store or the iTunes store, the Apple Store. Search for Citizens Count New Hampshire Voter Guide, and this basically gives you a very handy way to access all this voter information and candidate information that we're talking about that you can bring into the voting booth with you. So even if you don't have time to do the research before you decide you're going to vote, you
And
can
how
show
many of
up.
us don't do
How
that?
many of us don't do that?
Yeah.
You can show up on Tuesday, pull this thing up, and I'm pretty sure they don't kick you out if you take an extra 5 minutes to scan through it before you mark off those circles on your ballot.
So let's talk a
Absolutely.
little bit about what's in that voting guide, because
Yes.
I found it really, really interesting. 'Cause
Yes.
This was my first year of having an experience with it, and I learned a lot.
Yes, so we cover their background,
Mm-hmm.
education. If they're a current elected official, we include voting records as well as attendance statistics, how often they showed up, because that was a real hot issue this year.
Absolutely.
Is are people we elect actually sitting down and voting? And I will say that this is more or less a volunteer position. They get paid $100 a year and mileage. But nonetheless, we're electing them. We want them to show up to vote.
Yeah.
And there are some candidates that don't show up that often. So we show the attendance statistics and, of course, all of the survey issue positions. We also include a photo for almost all of the candidates. We've been able to get a photo, which I actually think is really helpful because these are people from your town.
Yeah.
And even if you don't recognize the name on the ballot, you may recognize them.
That face.
Yes.
Because a lot of them are also involved in local politics. So you may have seen them at your schools, volunteering with a local
hall
nonprofit,
meetings.
town hall meetings.
Yeah.
What's the ratio between representatives and citizens?
Isn't it? I think
I
it's
just looked it up. It's just over 3,300.
3,300, so,
So
no
there-
doubt we know them.
So yes, so there's one elected representative for every 3,300 people.
probably right down the street from you. You've probably run into them in the grocery store, and most of them really want to talk to you. They're very passionate about what they're doing because, of course, they aren't getting paid to do this.
Yeah,
They're doing it because they have that deep well of passion about New Hampshire.
Now, one of the challenges we talked about before was trying to get our representatives to fill out our survey. And our
Yes.
survey is not a partisan survey. It's not for a special interest group. It's just asking questions so that we can provide you with the information that you need so that you can make your choice. How do we get them more engaged, do you think?
Yes, I think that right now we are a unique nonprofit in that we are not looking to forward an agenda or endorse candidates or not. And so most candidates get surveys in the mail, for example, from the NRA, from Planned Parenthood, and it's going towards, well, are we going to endorse this candidate or not? That's not going on for us. So I think it's partly just education, just getting out to the candidates and letting them know who we are, because we still aren't super well known. And I think most of the candidates that I engage with personally, when I explain, you can write whatever you want in response to the survey. We're just trying to give you that vehicle to let your citizens know where you stand. So I think that that's really the barrier. It's most of the time with candidates, they're very willing to talk about their issue positions. They're just so used to that gotcha politics.
Right. Right. But it's not just for the citizens. Candidates could use this as well. So
Yes.
those that are running for office can take a look in writing and see what their opposition is saying.
Yes.
And they can see how much money they're raising. It's all right there.
Yes, that's other data you can find on
Yeah.
our website and app is fundraising. And I will say this has been a very interesting state race in terms of the fundraising
was. Certainly.
for
It was.
not only the congressional candidates, but also the executive council and the state senate. We've seen hundreds of thousands of dollars in some of these races.
I can tell you that there have been many years that I've voted for someone because I recognize their name. Now, shame on me. But
We've
now,
all done it.
But now I don't have to do that. And I noticed that on one of our executive council members, he didn't have his survey filled out. So I quickly emailed him from the app, asked him why he didn't fill out the survey. He said, well, oh my. And he filled out the survey, and then I was able to get all the information that I needed, and he aligned with my thinking. And I thought that was really important. So I emailed him back and I said, you have my vote.
That's
You
great.
have my vote. And I think if we all do that, if we go onto this app and we see who's out there, who's running, and obviously we know now it's pared down, but make sure that they filled out that survey so that you are educated on what their positions are. I can't tell you how much that really helped me, and other people right?
Yes.
Well, I think this is the thing. I mean, we talk about midterm election turnout, you know,
Yes.
and how low it is. And I think you hit the nail on the head earlier, Anna, when you were talking about a lot of people stay home because they don't know who these people
Yeah.
are. They don't feel like they can cast an informed vote. And I think that if candidates are being transparent about where they stand on the issues, then people can get that information, and it potentially increases turnout. And in a midterm election, turnout is everything.
Yes.
So that's another motivator for candidates here to go ahead and share these positions is if you don't tell people who you are, where you stand, there's going to be more of them that decide they're going to stay home rather than take the chance of voting for somebody that they don't agree with.
Agreed.
Right. So what do you think, ladies? Do you think we've covered it all? There's never time
There's
to
always
cover it
more to
all,
cover.
right?
I
There's
mean,
always more to cover.
There's more to cover. I mean, so we're talking about the elections, we're talking about voting, we're talking about turnout, but once November is behind us, there's going to be a whole slew of activity taking place up in the legislature. So there's going to be plenty more to talk about, but I think we can probably leave that for late November and December.
But if you are interested in Citizens Count, please visit our website, again, www.citizenscount.org, or give us a call at 603-929-2206. And if you want to volunteer, if you want to help us, if you want to help write editorials, you never know what kind of a background that you have. We could use as much help as possible so that we can get out to all the citizens here in New Hampshire and let them know that you can find a place for the facts without all the rhetoric that goes around it. Nobody's screaming at each other. You can read it in the comfort of your home. You can call us, you can text us, you can email us and ask questions, and we'll be happy to answer those questions. And you know that it's going to be fact-based. It's not partisan, it's unbiased. We take no position. We just want to make sure that you're educated and that we provide that education to you. If you're interested, we'd like to hold a monthly program so that we can answer your questions. If you're interested in getting in touch with us and giving us some questions that you would like to hear answers to, please feel free to do so. It's on our website, www.citizenscount.org. Jackie, do you have any last words that you would like to say?
Let's just all do our homework and our good citizenship here and get out and vote in November.
November 6th.
Yes.
Anna?
I would just echo that. Make sure to get to the polls. You have all day. Make it happen.
Right. Thank you very much for allowing us to come into your home today, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.